Okay, so in this tutorial I'm going to show you the new virtual reality functions that are in 3DCombine 6. I'm going to start with the real quick easy way, so if that's all you're looking for, just watch the first couple of minutes, and then after that I'll go into a bit more detail about how to manually tweak the settings. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open a video taken with a Lucid 3D stereo camera. As you can see, that's the image that you get as standard. All I have to do is literally select Lucid as the input mode, select OK, and I'll get a 180 degree panorama. I can now save that in parallel format or color anaglyph if I prefer, and I can view it in YouTube 3D or GoPro or whatever. Another supported camera is the Vuze camera. So this is slightly more complex, but there's a macro in the guides, so all I have to do is go Guides, Video Editing, Views. I select the Views video that I want to open, which is this one. I then select Views Full from the settings. I go OK, and it will automatically align and stitch all these images together to create a standard 360 degree panorama, which I can then save. There we go. So again, parallel format, color anaglyph, whichever I prefer. If I save it as a color anaglyph, as a parallel file, it will go straight into GoPro VR player, and I'm away. Obviously you want to allow a bit of time for it because there's a lot of rendering to do. Okay, so as I said, if that's all you're interested in, you can stop now. I'll go through those in a bit more detail and just explain what's going on. So I'll start with the Lucid. So this happens to be from the Lucid 3D camera, but it could be from any stereo camera or even non-stereo camera equipped with a fisheye lens. So rather than open it as a Lucid, I'll open it in parallel, so with no additional processing. And if I go to the VR tab, you see there's now a bunch of new options here, and the one I want is fisheye. So this applies corrections to fisheye images such as these are. So the first option I can do, if I select it, is equirectangular projection. This requires you to enter the field of view of the lens, and then it will convert it into an image which is suitable for viewing in a panorama viewer. So if I say it's 180 degree view, click OK, then you see I get to the image which is very similar to the one that happens when I selected Lucid as the input. And the black bits are the bit behind the camera, so this is a 360 degree panorama, of which the 180 degrees is the part that's populated. One alternative that I can do is when I select fisheye, I can also select perspective, and this does something entirely different. This takes your image from your fisheye lens and it converts into a standard stereo pair. So instead of field of view, this now becomes the viewing distance. So the way it works is the smaller the distance, the more of the image it will keep, but the more warped it will be because it's using, or the more distorted it will be because it's having to use more of the detail right around the edge. So if I start with 360, you can see I get quite a nice image, stereo pair of the car. If I change that and I now go to 720, you can see how it effectively zooms in, but it becomes a much more natural image. And then I can treat this just as I would any stereo video in 3DCombine. Okay, so that's it for fisheye images. The next thing I'm going to do is show you how to manually process the views videos. So I'll go open video and I'll select dual. Now this is for dual stream videos, so there are standard formats of dual stream. So the Fuji 3D camera, for example, produces a dual stream video, but in this instance I'm going to open a views file. So what you get, if you just open it as dual, you'll see you get 4 images on the left and 4 images on the right, and they're all out of order and need rotating. So the first thing you could do is just select views, and what that does is it puts the left images on the left, the right images on the right, and just lines them up. That's kind of a bare minimum. If you want to go away and do some more processing on that, you can. What I'm going to do is views full. And now what this does is it also applies the equirectangular projection correction to each view. So now I've got 4 views in each eye that are ready for stitching. The next thing I need to do is align this and get the 3D aspects right. So what I'm going to do is just skip ahead 100 frames because you often get the camera operator in there, and the guide function does this automatically. If you're going to do any sort of automatic stitching, then you need to have a good view of the scene. So what I could do now is I could manually process each stereo pair, and in order to do that I use the crop views function. So I click on crop views, I select the view that I want to see, so I'm going to go with front, and now I can treat this as a normal stereo pair. So I can use the alignment tools, for example. I'll use color anaglyph mode, and I can adjust the alignment of the images to get the right horizontal and vertical alignment that I'm after. I accept that. It tells me what the correction was, and then if I want to get back to the full image, I just go crop views and I select full. Okay, and then that correction is stored, and I can go on and I can do the back view or the right view or whatever. If I go into the filters list, you'll notice it now shows you what these corrections are, and it even lets you adjust them. So if I decide after the event that I've adjusted that one by too much, I can edit it and I can change it to 8, and it will re-render the whole thing. I can even take that out, and as you see, it goes back to how it was. Okay, so what the guides function actually does, let me remove all those filters, is it takes advantage of this auto function. So auto works much the way as it does in the automatic menu on stereo pairs, except to apply it to each of the stereo pairs in the views image. So so front to front, right to right, and so on. And I can choose to do vertical alignment, convergence, rotation, or in this instance just all of them. And again, this is what the standard filter does. So I'll let that run for a second. And if I open the filters menu, you see what it's done. It's done a whole batch of operations now. So it's done the crop to the front, it's aligned it vertically, horizontally, rotated it. Next, done the right, same for the right image and the back and the left. And as before, if I decide I want to tweak it, I can adjust it here. So I'll come back to that in a second. So now I've got my images, the 3D alignment is sorted. All I have to do now is stitch it together. So you could either, you could, if you wanted, export these one view at a time. There's nothing to stop you saving that as a parallel video, which you can pull into another tool for stitching, but I'm obviously not going to do that. What I'm going to do is stitch it within 3DCombine, and to do that you just click on View Stitch, and it automatically aligns everything up and produces a 3D image. As before, if I go into the filter list, I can see what it's done, and I can edit if I want, and I'll come back to this. So another new feature within 3DCombine 6 is the ability to save a project. So if I've got all these filters as I want them for my views camera, then what I can actually do is just save this. So I'll save this as my views.project. Okay, so let's clear out the workspace, and I'll start again with a completely different views video. So the process is the same. I go dual, I load it up, I select views full, I'm going to skip forward 100 frames, and then I'm going to stitch it, I'm going to do all the alignment. Actually, I'll run everything exactly the same as I did before. So I'll do all the alignment tools. Which obviously takes a minute longer. There we go, and then I'm going to stitch it. Okay, now what you'll notice when you look at the stitched image is that actually it's not done the best job. This is a really tricky scene to auto stitch because there's not a lot of detail in the water, then there's a lot of repeating patterns on the decking, and it's quite hard for the algorithms to deal with that. So there's a couple of things I can do. One, I can open the filters and I can start tweaking these things, so I can adjust the alignment, and I can also edit the stitching. To do that, I select the automatic version and then I click on Edit Selected, And here it steps me through all the offsets it's applied to the different images. So it's applied a vertical offset to the right view, the back view, the left view, and the front wrap view. So that's where the front view also gets stitched onto the end at the far right hand side here, onto that bit. And then it's horizontally aligned each of those sections as well. Finally, it's created a merge width, so it's looked at the number of pixels that it's merged over, and you can see that on the right hand side as it fades from one image to the other, and that's just to try and help hide any inconsistencies. So I have obviously didn't change anything then, but if I looked at this right hand image and I thought, oh, that's not quite aligned right, I can wait for the front wrap view, and I can say, okay, I'm going to shift that another 50 pixels. Sorry, this is horizontal. Horizontal is fine. Actually, no, I'm going to move it down slightly. So I'm going to say I'll try and move it down 20 pixels, and I'm going to move it to the right a little bit as well. So I don't know, 90. I'll leave the merge width as it is, and there you go. And you see it's corrected for that now. It looks much better. So I can sit there and I can fine tweak everything, or I've got my settings from my previous video, which I know work pretty well. So if I go to the project and open, and I select the project file that I saved before, you see it reapplies those settings. So now I've got a much better stitch than I had previously. Everything's lined up much more nicely, and I can still go in and tweak it if I want to. One other thing that can be quite neat, if I don't change anything, but I change the merge width, just something very small, it'll let you see how everything lines up much more precisely. So you can see where the offsets are, where things haven't been stitched quite right, and that's useful when you're going in trying to tweak it. So, and the other way to do that, of course, if I don't have to use any of these functions. If I know I'm going to load the project files, I can just open that project file and apply it. And in fact, this might be quite a nice video for optimizing the settings, because you can see quite clearly when it's got it right or wrong, and then applying that to other videos. And then, as before, I can save it as a parallel 3D panorama, and I can pull that into YouTube or GoPro VR or Oculus 3D viewer, or whatever you want to use to display your panoramas. And it's worth saying this isn't limited to working with fisheye images off 3D cameras. If you obviously if you open a video file as 2D, it'll just duplicate it in the left and right. So if this was a fisheye image, I could apply the filter to both sides and just get a standard 2D panorama. Okay, and that's it.